Hello music lovers, and welcome to my first video of 2020. We got a lot going on this year, lots of big tours, lots of anniversaries, and so in this video I'll be here to remind you exactly who Alanis Morissette was talking about in her smash hit You Oughta Know from 25 years ago. Also, will Motley Crue be in shape for their massive post-retirement 2020 stadium tour? Will seeing the Eagles live this year take your credit card to the limit one more time? Also, 50 years ago, which of the Fab Four released the first Beatles solo album of all original material? Maybe you'll be amazed to find out. All this and more coming up. All right, well, one thing I'm looking forward to this year is this documentary about ZZ Top called That Little Old Band from Texas, which is going to drop next month in February. And it's been produced by Sam Dunn over at Banger Films. This is the same team that put together that excellent documentary on Rush, Beyond the Lighted Stage. They also did Super Duper Alice Cooper, Flight 666 about Iron Maiden, and Metal Evolution, this great 12-part series about metal. I mean, this was like 12 hours, a real deep dive into the history, the roots, and the influence of metal. Can't recommend any of these movies more enough. So definitely looking forward to this. Let me know if you want to see a video about this ZZ Top documentary, because I'm surely going to be checking it out and probably will do one anyway. This year also marks 25 years since the release of Alanis Morissette's album Jagged Little Pill, which was hugely successful, hugely influential as well. And I remember back in 1995, one of my best friends was in Europe for the first half of the year. When he came back in the summer of 95, he told me, look, man, you got to listen to this. This is blowing up all over Europe. It's going to be huge here. And he was right. When I heard the album, I knew it was going to be a huge album. I mean, You Oughta Know was a song that Alanis Morissette, you could tell she was just dripping with inspiration and conviction, and it connected especially with the female audience. This is a song, very angry song about an ex-lover, and for the longest time we didn't know who the hell it was about, but we finally have found out that it was none other than Dave Coulier of Full House. And so we actually hear more about this from his co-star on the show, Jodie Sweetin. Her autobiography, Unsweetened. In it, she says this. She says Dave Coulier was pretty cool in his own right. He dated Alanis Morissette, who was always friendly when she came to the studio and who seemed like such a nice girl. The most famous thing to come out of that relationship, her hit song You Oughta Know, which angrily detailed the mess Dave left when he went away. While it became an anthem for every dumped girl in America, I could never light a candle and listen to You Oughta Know while cutting up photos of an ex, because any song about Dave Coulier just makes me giggle. So I guess one thing you could say is that Dave Coulier went from being full of shit to a full house. Now, when Alanis Morissette went on the road for this album, she had Taylor Hawkins of the Foo Fighters on drums. This was before he joined that band, and I remember he brought such dynamic, such electricity to her live performances. I would have loved to have seen her live, but the shows were sold out so fast it was really hard to get tickets. Also, I was working in radio at this time, working for a rock radio station, and rock radio was going through some serious growing pains in the early part of the 90s. I mean, a lot of these stations were playing like classic rock, and then all of a sudden you get Pearl Jam, and you get Alice in Chains coming along, kind of shaking things up a bit, getting a lot heavier. And then by the mid-90s, the alternative scene was starting to bubble up. We had like the Smashing Pumpkins and the Meat Puppets, and I remember the program directors, they were like scratching their heads, should we be playing this stuff? And then when Alanis came, forget about it. They were really fucking fried. They didn't know what to do. Here's a female artist, and we got, Flea on bass from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Dave Navarro plays the guitar on You Oughta Know, and we finally did add the song, and it did very, very well for the station. As I said before, hugely influential, Alanis, in this whole album, because after this, I remember we got a slew of female artists who were just pissed off at the world, Remember Meredith Brooks with her song Bitch? And then we had Tracy Bonham, and then eventually Fiona Apple. And so this just set off a huge cascade of female artists that even continues to this day. And so let me know if you're going to go check out Alanis Morissette on this 25th anniversary tour, and let me know what you think about the album Jagged Little Pill. Drop it down below. Now, another tour to look out for this year are the Doobie Brothers and Michael McDonald. These guys haven't toured together since 1995, and they'll be going out on a 50th anniversary tour. And I don't know if you've ever seen the Doobies. I got the chance to see them a few years back, and you can tell that they've been playing a lot over the past 50 years. They were amazingly tight live. You got to go check them out. And as for Michael McDonald, I got the chance to interview him back in 2002. I recently found the photo. I'll show you that, and I just keep forgetting why I can't smile in these fucking photos. Neither of us are smiling. I don't know what the hell was going on. Also, be sure to let me know if you want to see a video about the Doobie Brothers and their 50th anniversary tour with Michael McDonald. Be sure to drop that below in the comments. This year is also the post-retirement tour for Motley Crue. They're out with Def Leppard and Poison and Joan Jett, and this is going to be a major payday for all these guys. And I've already done a whole video about Motley Crue ripping up the contract and all that bullshit. I'll throw a link up to it. I don't want to rehash it all. Now, I saw this interview with Motley Crue, and look, I love Mick Mars. He's my favorite guy in the band, but it's like, holy shitballs. He looks like he's not even real. Like, I had to really wonder if that was a statue or what. And you know what's really bad is when you're standing next to Mick Mars and they're asking you, Vince Neil, if you're in shape to go do a tour. So yeah, Vince Neil's going to be working with the nutritionist, you know, to get him healthy again and all that. And I also understand they're going to be seeking the assistance of Google. They're going to pull the word buffet out of his Google Maps. Maybe that should help him out a bit too. But you know what? I really don't care about what he looks like. I don't care that he looks down and can't see his fucking toes. Can he sing? That's the big issue with Vince Neil. It's not what he looks like, it's what he sounds like. It's fucking atrocious, and he's going to be in a stadium, and you're going to be paying to see this shit. Let's take a look at the ticket prices for what you can expect on this stadium tour with Motley Crue. Let's check this out. All right, so let's check out the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. All right, this is just a random venue on this tour that I pulled out. Let's say you want to sit in section 113. All right, that's a reasonable seat, not that far from the stage. How much will this cost you? $184, plus with the fees and everything, easily over $200. One seat in a stadium. All right, let's check another seat closer to the stage. How about section D? All right, how much is this going to set you back? $359 plus the fees. You know, you're in this for nearly $400 a seat. And if you want the nosebleeds, you know, you're going to get about $80 or so probably for these seats. But then again, who the hell wants to sit at a nosebleed in a stadium? There's no way that I would ever go see a show at a stadium. What do you think about stadium shows? Would you go see this fucking mess? Drop it down below. Now this year, David Lee Roth is not only playing Vegas, but he's going to be opening up for Kiss on their 2020 tour dates for their End of the Road tour. Now, for those of you playing at home, this is year 2 of 3 of Kiss's farewell tour. And also, there's some history between Kiss and Van Halen that you may not know about. For example, Gene Simmons produced Van Halen's first demos in the mid-70s. And also, Eddie Van Halen wanted to join Kiss in the early 80s. And Gene Simmons told him, look, man, you're way too good for this band. Now, a couple of other things that these two bands have in common. You know, Paul Stanley of Kiss and David Lee Roth, both of them way past their expiration date. I mean, both of them can't sing for shit. Maybe Paul will let David Lee Roth borrow his karaoke machine. Also, between Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley and David Lee Roth, they all think that they are just God's gift to the world. Now, speaking of Van Halen, Sammy Hagar is going to be doing a proper tour with his band, The Circle, this year, doing a 40-city tour in 2020. You may recall last year, I went to go see The Circle. I did a video about that and Van Halen and all that drama. I'll throw a link up to it. But basically, Sammy Hagar planned his whole tour last year around a possible Van Halen reunion that never happened. And so Sammy Hagar this year is going on the road, doing 40 cities. Look out for those dates. But rest assured, you want to go see a great rock show, Sammy Hagar in The Circle is amazing, with Michael Anthony on bass, Vic Johnson on guitar, Jason Bonham on drums. These guys ripped through Van Halen, Led Zeppelin, Montrose, Sammy solo stuff. And The Circle's got a great new album too, Space Between. So be sure to check check out that show. Also in 2020, the Eagles hitting the road for the Hotel California tour. That's right, they're going to be playing their classic album straight through with an orchestra, and they are primed for taking every last penny that you've got saved, folks. Let's check and see how much this will set you back, all right? Let's take a look at an arena out in Phoenix, Arizona. All right, we're going to start with the shittiest seats. Section 212, yeah, $124 for the shittiest seats in the place. So when you figure in all the fees that they're going to throw in, it's going to be about $150 so that you can literally look at fucking screens the whole night. All right, so let's say you want to sit in section 114. What is that going to set you back? $294. So that's easily over $300 when you factor in the fees just for, you know, a decent seat to go see the Eagles. Now let's get a little bit closer in here. Now, if you want a floor seat in section B, that's right, $850. So yeah, after you add on the additional fees and your travel expenses, plan on about $1,000 a head to go check out the Eagles. Now I know that they're one of the biggest selling artists of all time, but are these guys fucking squeezing us or what? Let me know. Drop it down below if you plan on seeing the Eagles this year. Now, if you're a fan of Yes, they're going to be doing a UK tour where they're going to be playing their entire Relayer album straight through, but I got to be honest with you, if John Anderson isn't going to be a part of this, which he's not, then I don't really give a shit. Now, as for John Anderson and his band with Rick Wakeman and Trevor Rabin, ARW, they were supposed to be doing a tour this year, a farewell tour, but I saw this interview with Rick Wakeman in Classic Rock magazine recently, and this is what he had to say about that. He said, there has been some talk of us doing a farewell tour in 2020, and I'm up for that, but it doesn't fit into John's schedule. I'm not sure that Trev could do it either. Now, in this interview, Rick Wakeman also talks about these brand new songs that ARW has, but they just can't get all on the same page and get in the same room and finish them. So it sounds to me like there's not enough people involved in this band that really want to keep it going. It's just like another disappointment in the Yes camp. What else is fucking new? We've also got the Black Crowes and their reunion this year, the Shake Your Moneymaker tour. This is the same tour that they were going to do 5 years ago before Chris Robinson said, hey, you know what, guys? I think I should get 75% of the profits. And that's also shortly before everybody in the band said, fuck you, and everything went to hell. Former drummer Steve Gorman released a tell-all book last year called Hard to Handle, and I did a whole video about the Black Crowes and all this mess. Let me know if you plan on going to see the Black Crowes this year, but one thing's for sure, they definitely won't be the same without Gorman and the rest of the guys that helped to make that band what it is. All right, something else to look out for is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the 2020 induction. Now, we don't know who's going to be inducted yet, although the announcement is coming really soon. As a matter of fact, by the time this video comes out, the announcement is either imminent or would have already been made, so I'm not going to talk too much about it here. I'll probably do a whole video on it once they're announced. But what's interesting is that the Dave Matthews Band are leading the fan vote with Pat Benatar in second place. What's interesting about this is that for the past 7 or so years, whoever won the fan vote actually got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So does this mean that the Dave Matthews Band are a shoo-in? I mean, the other ones who got in from the fan vote, like Rush and Kiss, they were long overdue. They had a lot of steam behind them, especially from their peers within the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame who cast votes. Now, Dave Matthews Band doesn't really have that. They have a lot of fans behind them. So what happens if the Dave Matthews Band doesn't get in? Are their fans going to freak out? Is the Dave Matthews Band going to take a big shit on Cleveland like they did in Chicago? Remember this? Many years ago, their tour bus, they accidentally dumped all their fucking sewage on 100 people's heads. Now, I know a lot of people think that they're a shitty band, but this could really get fascinating. Also, if you were born in 1970, well, welcome to the 50 Club, my friend. And also, if there were any albums released in 1970, they are celebrating their 50th anniversary this year, which I'm sure we'll see celebrations, either tours or deluxe reissues. Let's take a look at some notable albums that were released in 1970. 50 years ago, Simon and Garfunkel released their final album, Bridge Over Troubled Water. Van Morrison, James Taylor, Joni Mitchell, Elton John with a couple of albums. A lot of the singer-songwriters getting their foothold early in the 1970s. Also, the Beatles, they broke up in 1970, put out their final album, Let It Be, and we also got a slew of solo albums from these guys. But it's time for some Beatles trivia. Can you tell me which post-Beatles solo album was the first to contain all original material? Was it Paul McCartney's debut album, McCartney, All Things Must Pass by George Harrison, John Lennon and the Plastic Ono Band, their debut, or Ringo Starr's Sentimental Journey? The answer, Paul McCartney's McCartney. Paul McCartney comes out in 1970. This is before the Let It Be album comes out, and he does an album practically all by himself. He plays all the instruments, and this is a true solo album, and with this album, he announced to the world that the Beatles had in fact broken up. Now, if you're a fan of progressive rock, this was a year we saw Time and a Word from Yes, their second album. King Crimson released a couple of albums. Emerson, Lake and Palmer making their debut. Genesis with Trespass. We also had Pink Floyd, Adam Hart Mother, The Moody Blues, Traffic, Miles Davis with his, jazz fusion album, Bitches Brew, Santana with their second album, Chicago. The Stones were getting their yayas out. Now, in terms of hard rock, we had the dawn of heavy metal with the debut album from Black Sabbath, which came out in 1970, and that really was a game changer. We also saw Deep Purple release In Rock, Free, Fire and Water, and Led Zeppelin 3. We also had The Doors, David Bowie, and also Kraftwerk, their debut album. What's interesting about Kraftwerk is they are nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. And when you think about it, this is 1970, starting out with electronic music. And it would be like another 10 or so years before what they were doing, what they were starting, would really have an impact on rock and roll. That's why I think they should definitely be in. But no, we're talking about the fucking Dave Matthews Band. We also had Eric Clapton in 1970, having broken away from Cream and Blind Faith, released his first solo album, also with Derek and the Dominoes, pulling out Layla. We've also got a lot of brand new albums coming out in 2020, and I'll be honest with you, I'm underwhelmed by the list. I don't really get too excited about brand new music in general these days. I just think there's a lot of recycled shit that just doesn't sound too original. And especially, this new Stone Temple Pilots album. With Scott Weiland gone, now they're dumping a acoustic album on us. I mean, really, I cannot wait to miss this one. We've also got a new album from Green Day. That's right, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. Who gives a shit? Ozzy Osbourne, he's got a new one coming out this year. Have you heard the new Ozzy Osbourne song with Post Malone? Yeah, it's fucking awful. Also, the Foo Fighters are working on some new music. They should have a new album out later this year. And there's a whole slew of albums that should have been out last year that never materialized, like Pearl Jam and The Cure and AC/DC. They put a new album in the can last year. Haven't seen it yet. And also Greta Van Fleet. They were supposed to put out something in 2019. Hasn't happened. And also, if there's anything in this video that I talked about that you want to see me do a whole video on, drop it down below in the comments and I'll do my best for you, all right? Also, if you want to support this channel, the good news, it's free. All you got to do is give this video a thumbs up. It will help get it in front of other fans who may like this kind of stuff. Hit that subscribe button too, and I will be back soon with another video, all right? So take care.